Hey, what's up, good people? We are back with another exciting episode of Business Growth Time. Today, we're joined by Samantha Burmeister. We're going to talk about being a copywriter extraordinaire. But before we get into Sam and her background, let's say hello to Janet and talk about what is spooky in her world.
I thought I'd be festive for today. Like, I'm not doing anything for Halloween, so I'm like, okay, well, I'll
This
do
is
it
this
for
is what
now.
you got.
This is all I got for Halloween. This is my dress up. Yep.
All right. Well, you honestly, it looks like you dressed a little better for the Lionel Richie concert. What
Yes.
shirt did you end up going with? We all need to know.
Oh, I was say you, say me. I kept it safe. I didn't do the band songs. Yes, you do. Go look up
So,
titles. So to explain, I just went to Lionel Richie in Vegas, which was amazing. One of my bucket lists in life. And so to do it in Vegas at the Wynn was amazing. But we had 7 girls and we all had songs on our shirt of Lionel Richie. But if you Google Lionel Richie songs, some of the titles are kind of crazy. My sister was easy. Okay. So like
good E
Sunday
word
morning,
for the day. Last time I used that for you, though, I got slapped. So I figured it was
easy.
bad.
Oh, there's our E word. There you go. Okay. That's great. So anyway, so we're back and moving forward. So it was really, really fun though. Yeah.
Awesome. 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 Well, tell us about this nomadic copywriter you seem to know.
Yeah. Well, I'm like suddenly because my coach, well, and I don't even know if I've told you this, Terry, Desmond was on our show prior.
Yeah,
Remember Desmond?
Desmond, sure.
Now I hired him. So I don't know if I told you that. So
No,
we're
but he was
working.
super cool. That's a good move.
Yeah, we're working very closely together, and he has a lot of great referrals. So, referral partners, that kind of thing. And so he introduced me to Samantha, and we talked, we hit it off, and I'm like, you would be a great person to have on the podcast. And the reason for that is because I do not think we have interviewed somebody like her as a copywriter, and I cannot remember if we've even had a copywriter on our podcast ever.
That's a fascinating question. I nothing coming to mind, but
No,
my
me
mind
neither.
is
We've had lots of video
not.
talks, which, but we have not had a copywriter. And honestly, copywriting is critical, absolutely critical on the internet. I mean, it is like it makes or breaks your business. So we're going to talk about that with Samantha. So Samantha runs the Nomad Copy Agency, and I'm going to let her tell her story on how she even decided to get into this and then kind of like what she does. And then we're going to drill her with some questions. So, welcome, Samantha. It's super good to have you on.
Hi, thank you so much.
Good. So, I'd love to hear your story. Let's hear your background and where you came from and what brought you here.
Yeah. So let me back up a little bit, I guess. My story is very non-traditional because I am a nomad. So I do not have a home base. I've started to establish one in Northern California, which is where I am now. I spend maybe almost half the year here. But for the past 3 years, I've been traveling. And I started off very traditionally, went to high school in Iowa, went to Iowa State University, got degrees in marketing and international business. And somewhere along that route, I read The 4-Hour Workweek, which I always say ruined my life in the best possible way. Because I realized I was on a track. A large university is going to push you to a large company. And being from Iowa, a lot of times that was Target, Johnson & Johnson. People would move out to Seattle and work for Nike. And I did not resonate with that idea that I would have to work for someone else for 40 plus hours and do the commute like for the rest of my life. And what I read in that book really started to change my paradigm. And I don't follow that book to the T, but it
That's
really
how
changed my
I,
paradigm at a critical time in my life where I realized I can do what I want while still having a very legitimate career that I define for myself rather than letting someone else define. So all that to say, I was an excellent writer. I did end up taking a career in sales right out of school because I had student loans and didn't have any great ideas of how to make money for myself. So I worked in sales. I gained a ton of really, really high-end experience. I was selling luxury products and tech products, which, I mean, we always used to joke that we sold $100,000 passwords because tech and software can be so elusive when you're selling. So I got a ton of really great sales experience. During that time, I started a travel blog because even though I had 15 days of PTO a year in my first 3 years after graduating university, I traveled over 30 countries. And then about 3 years ago, in mid-2019, I decided that I had enough of a runway fund and quit my job and started traveling and writing full time. And with that, Nomad Copy Agency was born.
Very
Love that.
interesting.
Love that. All right. So before we get into copywriting and that, I say favorite place. What are the first 3 places that come to mind?
The most impactful place I've ever been, hands down, Palestine. It was beautiful and the people were incredible, and I learned more about myself and the world in those couple weeks than I have anywhere else. Favorite place to live has been Brazil. It was just a blast. And I always try to touch on food, and I feel like that changes with my mood, but obviously Italy gets really high points there, but also so does Thailand. So yeah,
Nice.
a little bit of everything.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah, Vegas doesn't sound that cool now, does it, Janet?
Vegas gets points for uniqueness. They get points for
yeah,
the most money you can spend in 3 days.
That's exactly right.
Anytime I leave Vegas, man, as soon as I get on that plane, I kiss the seat in front of me because I'm like, yes, I didn't screw up my life so bad that I can't go home. Woohoo!
Isn't that funny? I didn't spend one dime in gambling, not one. So
Nice.
I'm not a big gambler, but Vegas costs, don't get me wrong. So
Yeah,
what's
yeah,
the
I'm
most
not a big gambler
expensive-
either, but
where have you been that's the most expensive, you would say, out of curiosity?
the most expensive, I mean, Switzerland for sure. I mean, you'd show up on a train or a plane or whatever, you want a sandwich and you're going to suddenly drop $30. I mean, it's wild how quickly you can spend
Wow.
money there. Hotels, everything is just expensive in Switzerland. I'm trying to think because there was somewhere that I was
United
recently.
States? Just kidding.
Yeah. You know, funny enough, Tulum. Like, you think you're going to Mexico and everything's going to be incredibly inexpensive. I lived in Playa del Carmen for about 6 months, and we would pop down to Tulum on the public bus because it would cost like $1.50. But you would get there, and I mean, hotels are hundreds of dollars a night, and you just came from a land of tens of dollars a night, and $2 tacos become $10 tacos. So I feel like in relativity, Tulum's a really expensive place to be as well. Vegas, I mean, anywhere in the Emirates, Dubai, you know, all of that things, because it's all about luxury there.
Yeah.
Playa was a riot. We were there a couple of months ago. And we were in Tulum as well, but Playa just had a vibe to it. What a neat spot. Tulum was cool, right? But it was so, like, it just felt so pretentious and so like, oh yeah, we're super cool because we're Tulum and we're in commercials.
Yeah. I think people see it on Instagram or whatever and think, you know, you've got to go there, and the beaches are phenomenal. I mean, the aesthetic is distinctive. Like, there's definitely the Tulum aesthetic, but are you going to get the best food of your life? Are you going to get the best sleep of your life? You might have some of the best parties of your life, for sure. But I just remember going with a friend, and we were doing like sober January at the time, and we wanted to go sit at a bar on the beach, and we ordered a sparkling water, and it was $6 each. And we were just like, holy cow, like, this costs more than 2 of our meals yesterday.
Wow. Yeah, well, our drinks were $25 at the Wynn each.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but Lionel was worth it. All right, let's get into copywriting. Okay, so tell us about what your specialty is with copywriting. Would you say, like, what do you write typically?
Yeah, my specialty is in sales copy. So for the vast majority, and I think it helps to distinguish between the difference between copy and content. So I always say copy is written for people, content is written for computers. So content, you're going to hear about blog posts and captions and things that the internet, especially Google, is going to crawl and be able to find keywords that they tie to you and to your brand. So that's content. Copy inspires action in people. And that action is hopefully sales, but sometimes the action that you want isn't a sale. Sometimes it's a click here. Sometimes it's a, whatever the action is that you're trying to inspire and people to ultimately lead in towards a sale. So with that, and especially in the context of talking to you, who's an expert in Facebook ads and TikTok ads and all the ads, is where do those ads go? So when we follow that sales journey, we start with the Facebook ad, which I do write the copy that goes in what most people would call the caption of the ad. We do write that. Sales pages, opt-in pages, thank you pages even, and then the email sequences that follow once people have opted in or purchased from those sales pages or opt-in pages.
How challenging is?
Go ahead.
I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
No. Oh, I was just gonna say that was a really good breakdown of like the sales funnel. So that was a really good breakdown of, it goes from the place you get the traffic is maybe the ad, it could be organic social media as well, not much of that anymore, and then the ad takes them to a landing sales page, which you have to have written text copy for, and the copy on a landing page is different. I loved what you said before too. It's very different from like just a website content, for instance, because the content, when you build a website, you're looking to like, oh, okay, let's get this found on Google, that kind of thing. So that's your goal with the website. But this is copy. So the copy is leading to a sale or conversion of some sort, which then brings them to a confirmation thank you page. And then maybe they don't buy then, but then you need to follow up with the email, and then we
need the emails. We need the emails. We need the abandoned cart emails. We need the retargeting emails. It comes down to, and you know this well, there's so much finesse in understanding your audience and where they are in the journey, because the way that you send an email to somebody who has never been to your page versus someone who has recently been on your page versus someone who filled out the beginning of the form and then realized they didn't have their credit card next to them. You talk to those three people three very different ways, even though they may be quote unquote the same person. If you have an ideal client that you're working with, they might be Janet, but it's Janet 1, Janet 2, and Janet 3, and she's at three very different stages of the sales journey.
So that's interesting, because that was my question, was going to be, how challenging is it to map out what those email sequences look like? Because when you're doing them right, you're probably doing a 6-touch, 7-touch kind of thing. And then you just added a whole different dimension based on what actions they've taken or haven't taken.
Totally. You're 100% right, Terry. And you hear about how many touches. And when I was in school for marketing, we would talk about a 7-touch campaign, an 8-touch campaign. And even when I started working in sales, we were encouraged to track through our CRM, how many times have you reached out to Terry? And that's almost irrelevant, because they're also saying, depending on who you talk to, you need anywhere between 30 and 70 touches now to convert, which is why ads are so important, because those touches all look a little bit different. They might see your ad once, twice, 3 times. They might see your retargeting ad. I love you. So like those count as touches. And so there's soft touches and hard touches. And did they see you, if they met you at a conference and you've been face to face and shaken hands and kissed babies, you're going to need a lot fewer touches to gain trust with that person to the point that they realize that they need what you have to offer. Versus if it's ads, you might need a lot more because they don't have a face to the name. So then once you start showing up somewhere more personal, like their email inbox, or they've come to you. So, your question was, how challenging is it to map it out? To which my answer is yes. You really need somebody who has an overall strategic vision. It's really, really easy to jump in and say, wow, what Samantha has to offer. Wow, what Janet has to offer. Like, this is my golden ticket. And if you can tie that together with a larger strategy of these are all pieces of the puzzle that go together and form the golden ticket, that's where you're going to have the most impact with a marketing campaign.
Wow. That's awesome. When did you realize that you were a good writer and then transition that passion or talent or interest in writing into leveraging it for helping more people convert greater deals?
Yeah, I think that there have probably been a lot of touch points throughout my journey. Writing was always something that came really easily to me. I would always take the advanced writing classes throughout school, and when it came time to choose electives in college, I always chose the writing ones. But for me, writing was a hobby. I kind of grew up in that, I don't know the difference between left brain and right brain, but like a very analytical family. So writing was an art, and therefore like not necessarily something that you could make a living off of. Also, I think we grew up thinking that if you're a writer, you're an author and you write novels and you're kind of the starving artist kind of idea. So I loved it. And I started blogging because there's a lot of divorced people in my family, and I studied abroad. And so someone would send me an email asking the same question that I had just answered for another family member like 2 days ago. So there was no communication there. So I was like, I'm going to start a blog for y'all. And then you can ask me questions later, and I will just answer those questions in the form of blog posts. So what I didn't realize is I was doing market research very actively, catering to a very specific audience. All of those audience members had the same last name as me. But through that journey, I realized, wow, people really enjoy hearing the stories that I have to tell. And then when I started working in sales, I didn't mind getting on the phone because that was very much a part of the job, but I had so much more success in emails. So I really started to put it together that I was not only a good writer, but that I was a very convincing writer, as well as a good storyteller. So then when I quit my job, that's a really fun story actually, but when I quit my job, I reached out to several of the people in my network and said, I'm a free agent and I have no idea what I'm doing. If there's anything that I can do for you, let me know. And every single person asked me to write copy for them.
That's cool.
It's a hot commodity. I mean, and see, like everything that you're saying is exactly the opposite of how I feel. Like I can write because I've studied copy and I know how to, I know it because we kind of have to being in the internet world. But if I could choose A or B, video and just talking or writing it all out, I would take video all day long. Mm-hmm. So we need people. So there's two sides. So people like us need people like you because you definitely can get that message out there in written form versus, and we don't want to just go out there and say, buy my stuff, because nobody wants to buy your stuff unless you really, explain and tell a story. I love that you mentioned stories and that's a big thing. Wow, that's really cool. So tell us how you work with clients. Like what's your process with clients?
Yeah, so what you just said actually brings up a really good point in how I work with clients is that so many people, copywriters, designers, ad strategists, they send out this huge long survey and it takes like 2 hours to fill out and you've got to put everything in your own words and define your ideal client. And two things there. One, by the time they've come to a copywriter, they usually have some form of that they've worked through their branding with another professional. And two, I'm the writer here. So often my process begins with a conversation. And of course we find out if we're a good fit, but also I need to hear why what you have to offer is valuable in your words. And then I need to see it in your ideal client's words, which means looking at testimonials. And I do all of my research through other people's words, which is really interesting. So often people think like, oh, I just tell you what my thing does and then you go write about it. And you have to understand, like you said, buy my thing is not the goal. After you buy my thing is the goal. What happens when you look great in this hat? What happens when you take that vacation to Tulum? What happens when you do that thing? So we start with conversations. We record the conversations. I go off and write. I hand things back to you. There's always an opportunity for revisions, especially the first time that I work with someone, because getting things in both how their ideal client wants to see it and their voice is super important. And so we do the revisions, then I hand back the revisions and you implement that copy. I think people get fuzzy right there with then you go implement that copy. That means that you or a tech VA or your ad strategist or your Kajabi designer or whomever goes and puts that copy in. As a copywriter, my job ends when we have dotted every I and crossed every T, but not when those things are implemented into the system that they'll appear on.
Totally makes sense. Yep. And that makes, because copywriting is completely different from the actual design build of it. Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense. But the copy is like so important to get that design build even to happen. You need to
It is. And I mentioned before, like, it's so vital to have somebody, whether it's you as the business owner or someone that you've started or delegated this out to have somebody who has the whole strategic vision in mind, because then you can pull people in together. Like, if there's an ad strategist and I have no idea if it is Jim or Janet, that makes my job a little harder, and it makes Jim or Janet's job a little harder, because they can't come to me and say, hey, this word is going to get flagged because I didn't know that that's, something that might have been in the back end of Google Ads, is that we can't make this promise. And it's so helpful when that strategist can also connect the designer and the ad strategist and the copywriter, not to take all of our time, but to save all of us time by just put us in the same Slack channel so that we can communicate. And that's a huge part of hiring any of us, is helping us to collaborate and letting us collaborate on your behalf.
Yes, that's a good point, because one of the things we've learned if the sales page doesn't, so when we learn from the data with our ads, and once we learn, okay, the ad could be totally working, you're getting click through, you're getting people to go to the sales page, but then they hit that page and it doesn't convert. We have to talk to the person that wrote that copy and built that sales page so that they fix things there, because it's not broken with the ads. So you are exactly right. Collaboration makes a big difference, because they're all moving parts. And
who takes the lead? Who acts as the quarterback when you've got all those different teammates?
Yeah, that is a great question. I have seen people hire launch managers or launch strategists who do a great job, or if they have an online business manager or someone in some sort of operations role, that person will manage the people on their team, as well as, because they work so closely with the CEO, they'll have a really good understanding of what the overarching goal is, rather than simply people management or project management. Would you agree with that, Janet?
80+% of the time, there's nobody.
True. Yeah.
Just
very often
it happens.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's a good point for people listening, is it's like, okay, cool. So I want ads to run to a page, but then I also don't want to manage this myself. And they're just seeing, like, going back to Vegas, right? They're seeing like those things, the numbers just adding up, like, ding, 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 like, what does this come to? And you can pick and choose which of these people you want. If you're really good at copy, if you're really good at ad strategy, if you're really good at team management, but have no idea about design or copy, like, we often have to either rob Peter to pay Paul, or make strategic decisions while we grow. And then that we see where those gaps are, and your ad strategist can tell you, next time, hire a copywriter and you'll see better click-throughs. Your copywriter can say, next time, hire an ad strategist, because you're going to need this. And so as you grow, you can plan where you need those next dollars to go to.
That makes a ton of sense. And so, we talked about the idea of copy being different than content, and copy for people and content for the bots and the whatnots. Tell me, how do you really delineate between those two? What are some of those nuanced differences?
I'd say the biggest gray area there is websites, because you need your website to convert. You need it to inspire action. But also, if you plan on getting any sort of organic traffic, you're going to work with somebody who knows SEO to decide what your keywords are, and then strategize your metadata on the back end to bring people to that. But you need certain words in your headers and throughout your website, so that Google knows that you're not just, I forget what the word is, but like trying to skew SEO by putting the same word over and over just to rank. So that's one of the biggest gray areas. And then also Oftentimes, the internet is not going to crawl, is what it's called, for captions, but captions are still very much content because of how fast they fall to the back of the room with the algorithm. You're not going to have a post that's 6 months old pop up. So it's probably not worth investing in a copywriter in that, and instead having some sort of content strategist write your captions, unless you're going to pay to put those posts out there, which would look like the ads.
So
That's a good, yeah, it does make sense. Now, this is important for people to know. A website takes time to get the SEO, to get the, to get it to actually show up in Google. I mean, over time, yes, you get traffic automatically, but you got to have ways to drive traffic, and driving traffic to a website really isn't the answer. It really isn't.
Mhm.
I would never drive traffic just to, I mean, there are a couple clients that we do, but there's so much busyness. So that's where the landing pages and the sales pages come in. I blew off for over 3 years building a website because I didn't care. Because rebuilding my website, I had one, but it was like getting outdated and everything, because guess what was making me sales pages, landing pages. So bottom line is, I think that's very important for people to know. Copy, I mean, this is my opinion, but I've been doing this a long time. Copy and the sales pages and landing pages are way more important in my mind. You got to get traffic to both than just throwing up a website. Like, I launched a website. I just did it a few weeks ago. Terry, you probably have no idea. I don't care. I didn't even tell the world like other people, I'm like, I don't care. Because I just needed to get it done. All I care about is the sales pages that I have and driving the traffic. So I think copywriting is such a big area, but websites are important, but I think they're secondary, unless you have nothing, but they're definitely secondary. I have one question.
I would agree.
Go ahead.
Can I ask you a question first?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
How does that, I'm surprised to hear you say that, because I've talked to so many Facebook and other ads managers who say, you need this website and we need to be able to track who's visiting it so that we can do all of this retargeting. So I'm surprised to hear you say that, because are you then implying that you can simply do the same tracking but to a sales page?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's what you're saying. Okay.
You can. Yeah, you absolutely can. Now, did I have a website with pixel tracking? Yes, but it was outdated and it needed to be redone. So, yes, people should have their domain name and have that, but you know what? You could set that up as a sales page. You don't need, it's a different world today, I think, than it used to be. What I wanted to end with you, and Terry, if you have any last things, but you'll maybe have questions with my question for her. You talked about the 1 day thing that when I talked to you last, like, you do this in like 24-hour turnaround, crazy. Because most copywriters I know, months to copyright something sometimes. So I'd love to hear this.
So everyone has a different process, and that goes for every creative. But I do offer a done in a day service, and it's not necessarily 24-hour turnaround in that you slide into my DMs right now and 24 hours from now you'll have copy, because I do have a schedule and I do have people booked out for a while. But I realized that sometimes I would have a day or a half day just open. And I was like, well, man, what do I do with my hands? I don't know what to do today. So I started offering, if you need something, I have next Thursday morning available, and we can crank out 3 to 4 ads in that time. We can write a sales page next Thursday in a full day. And if I have extra time, if your product is pretty cut and dry, I'll start writing your sales sequence too. And it's just a way to hit fast forward on a process, and I say that it's not a funny joke at all, but everyone I write for knows how to write. You just don't like writing. You can't do it effectively and efficiently. So you can write your sales page, but I bet every single designer who listens to this will say, yeah, but they don't. And then I end up hounding them. So that's where these done in a day services are super valuable. Is as entrepreneurs, we're super agile. We have an idea and we want to see it in fruition next Tuesday. Or you've been putting something off and your designer's breathing down your neck and you're going to start incurring surcharges because you're wasting their time and they deserve to be compensated for it. So you hire it out and do a done in a day service to just get it moving. And that would be the example, that would be the exception to what I said earlier of you want a copywriter to really like get in there and work with your team. The done in a day is like the get in, get out, get it over with.
That's really cool. And what a great service. I tell people all the time, I can write. I don't consider myself a writer, right? So there's a difference. I wrote a book. I can write. I know how to write.
Yeah.
But I don't know really anything about writing compelling and captivating copy, aside from use some alliteration every now and again. So what are 3 tips that you could give that would help Ernie, who as we refer to our audience, Ernie, another E word, that would improve their copywriting skills? Or maybe an easier question is, what's the best resource to even start on that journey?
The first 2 things that come to mind are brevity and pleasure points. I'll start with the pleasure points. When we talk about who's your ideal audience here, what are their problems, it so often stops there. And we need to think about what are their problems. But if you've ever looked at a sales funnel, it's going to walk you through becoming problem aware, then becoming solution aware, and then taking action with that solution. And we have to guide them through copy to becoming solution aware and make sure that that solution is you. And you don't do that by reminding them about their problems. I should say you don't do that by exclusively reminding them about their problems. You also have to say like, oh, Terry, you live in Michigan. You must be cold. Being cold sucks. Being cold means you have goosebumps. Do you know how much energy you spend being cold? And stop there and be like, buy this sweatshirt. No, you take them through the journey of like, but you can look fashionable and you're going to be more comfortable and you're going to have more energy to spend with your partner at the end of the day because you are going to look great and feel great with this sweatshirt. Click here. You have to take them through the pleasure points as well. So that's a huge tip because you so often see people like so knowledgeable about their customers' problems and not positioning themselves as the answer. Second thing is brevity. Nobody opens their emails hoping for a blog post. So like, if we could just cut that shit out, that'd be great.
I love it.
People will send, somebody opts into your freebie and I will see, because I do opt-in audits for people for free. And I will see people when I opt in and I start getting their emails. Hi, I'm Sam. I'm a copywriter. Here's my entire life story. Here's your download. These are the 3 things that you're going to benefit from it. Also, here's a story about my grandma's neighbor's dog. Like, no, send 3 separate emails. Here's your opt-in. Next day, by the way, I thought I'd introduce myself. I'm Sam. I'm a really great copywriter. If you are still having issues writing your emails, get on my calendar here. Next day, hey, want to talk? Here's my calendar invite. Maybe a small story at the bottom. Keep it going. Like, nobody's going to read your 1,500 word email or your 1,500 word opt-in page. Your sales page.
What's brevity?
Probably.
Is brevity 300 words or less? Where are we? Where's brevity?
Yeah, that's the beauty of copywriting is there are no rules here. Use emojis and be grammatically incorrect as long as it's on brand and all of that. But I would say emails should probably be kept to about 300 words or less. If it's a sales email, it'll get longer because people might be looking for details. But in theory, the first paragraph should tell them everything they need to know about what they're going to get in that email and then continue on. So it might end up being 500 words, but I think if you're sending 700 word emails, you should be sending them to your sales page, not to the bottom of the email.
Nice. Very, very good.
Mhm.
Excellent tip. Excellent.
Super good content here. This was great.
I loved your point about pleasure points. I was talking to one of the speakers yesterday. We were talking about business growth for both of our businesses, and he's like, I'm reminded of what somebody told me long ago in my career. You gotta look for the folks whose necks are bleeding, right? You gotta find people that have a level of pain, right? And this is 2022, and we're still talking about how to go after those pain points. So I loved your juxtaposition of that and turning it into making sure you're speaking to their pleasure points. Because what we really want to do is show the outcome of what they're going to get by working with us or buying the thing or whatnot.
Mhm.
So very,
Yeah.
very well stated.
Yeah. Thanks, Terry.
Awesome. Well, Terry, wait, first, then I'll have Terry wrap it up. But Samantha, where is the best place for that people to find you if they want to reach out for your services? I have
Yeah.
a cat that's
If you're,
sneezing. Sorry,
yeah,
I'm going to mute me.
you're great. The fastest way to get on my calendar, if you think that we need to work together like yesterday, is to go to my website. It's nomadcopyagency.com. And right at the top, there's a Let's Connect button, and that's where you'll tell me about your project and get on my calendar. If you just want to be in my sphere, knowing that you need a copywriter soonish, I'm on Instagram at nomad.copy, and on LinkedIn, if you search Samantha Burmeister, I'll come up right away. I also have my opt-in audit that I briefly mentioned. If you have an opt-in and it's not converting, or you think that you could get higher subscribers and decrease your unsubscribe rate once they do hit your emails, that's a perfect place to connect and see how I work. And I will send you the link to put it in the show notes, but it's nomadcopyagency.com/audit-opt-in. It's clunky, so it'll be in the show notes.
Got it.
Perfect.
Perfect. Yeah, that'd be great.
That's
Awesome.
amazing.
Love
All
it.
right. Well, thank you so much for all the valuable tips and information and insight, and really importantly, sharing your story. I love learning about the travel and all the good work you've done at different points of the globe. That's cool.
Thank
For
you.
the rest of you, if you want to hear more interesting conversations like this about things that are going to help you build your business, you can go to businessgrowthtime.com/podcast and see over 170 episodes, many of which have interesting and exceptional guests like Sam here. And about half of them are just Janet and I talking about the things that we do to grow business for ourselves and our clients. It's all about best practices and how to spend your time growing your business. We'll look forward to seeing you again real soon. Thanks for being here, Sam. Great to see you, Janet. Stay spooky.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.